Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we are taking a trip to what is, for us, the immediate future. It's January 2026.
Right now.
And we are standing, metaphorically, outside this massive building on Boulevard Pie-IX in Montreal. And from the outside, it looks, like a standard modern municipal building.
Sure.
But inside, there's a revolution happening. It has
Oh.
nothing to do with zoning laws or parking tickets.
Yeah, not at all.
We're looking at a fundamental shift in how a major city is handling one of its most emotional and messy responsibilities, animal welfare.
It's a really fascinating moment. I mean, it's so rare that you see a city just completely tear down its old operating manual and write a new one from scratch like this.
And it is a massive new matter. We were talking about a $150 million shift in philosophy. This isn't just about opening a shiny new pound with, nicer cages.
This is a total system overhaul.
We're looking at how Montreal went from this fragmented, confusing mess of different contractors to a centralized hub that treats animal control less like catching strays and more like social work.
And that's the key distinction, right?
Mm-hmm.
What opened its doors on January 1st, this new facility run by Proanima, it's not just a warehouse for lost dogs. It's an attempt to answer a really core question.
Which is?
How do you actually integrate animal welfare into housing support, into public health, and even into domestic violence prevention?
Which sounds incredibly heavy for a topic that usually involves cute puppies.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why we're diving in. We're going to unpack the sheer scale of this new facility, the crisis in 2025, that basically forced the city's hand. And the numbers are, they're wild, and then we'll get into the practical side. If you're living in Montreal, the map of where you go for help has completely changed.
It really has. It's a whole new ecosystem.
But before we get to the new shiny building, we have to talk about the before times. Because until very recently, Montreal's system was, let's call it complicated.
Complicated is a very polite way to put it. For a long time, Montreal's animal management was just fragmented. You have 19 different boroughs in the city, right? Well, historically, those boroughs often acted like 19 little independent kingdoms.
Yeah.
They were all juggling different contracts with different private providers.
So wait, you're saying if I lived on one side of a street, I might call one company if I found a stray cat, but my friend 3 blocks over in a different borough would have to call someone else.
Exactly. And the rules might be different, the response times, everything. It was inefficient, it was inconsistent, and frankly, it was just confusing for the public.
So the city decided to end that.
They did. They moved toward a strategy of centralization, and they put serious money behind it. A historic 10-year contract worth $152.9 million to Proanima.
Okay, I have to stop you there. $152 million. I mean, that is an astronomical amount of money for animal control.
It is.
Taxpayers get grumpy about potholes, let alone spending 9 figures on cats and dogs. Is that price tag? Is it really necessary?
It sounds high, I know, but you have to look at what that money actually buys you. It's not just for buying kibble. That figure represents stability.
Stability how?
By signing a 10-year contract, you're stabilizing an entire employment sector. You're giving a decade of job security to veterinarians, animal health technicians, behaviorists.
So you're building an institution, not just hiring a temp agency.
Precisely. And it also marks a pretty significant political shift. Proanima is a nonprofit organization, an NPO. Historically, the city relied really heavily on for-profit providers.
Like Burger Blanc. They were a big name.
A huge name. This move signals that the current administration believes animal welfare should be managed by nonprofits, not by businesses looking for a margin.
Okay, so that brings us to the building itself. You can't have a centralized system without a center, right? It's at 9350 Boulevard Pie-IX.
In Villeray-Saint-Michel Park Extension, yeah.
Okay.
And they didn't just, sweep the floors and move in.
No, I bet not.
It was a massive construction project. The facility is 3,620 square meters. That's, around 39,000 square feet. It was a former commercial site, and they spent $17.1 million just on the renovations.
Again with the numbers. $17 million for a renovation. I could do a lot of kitchen renos for that. What are they putting in there? Gold-plated fire hydrants.
Not quite. But think about what it actually takes to turn a commercial shell into a high-volume animal hospital.
Okay.
You're building a medical facility. You need specialized HVAC systems to stop airborne diseases like kennel cough from spreading between hundreds of animals. You need industrial soundproofing.
So the barking doesn't drive everyone crazy.
Exactly. And you need surgical suites, quarantine zones, surfaces that are easy to sterilize. That 17.1 million isn't paint and drywall, it's biosecurity infrastructure.
That makes sense. You're building a hospital, not an office. But you don't build a 39,000 square foot hospital for fun. You build it because you have a patient load that demands it.
And that's where the story gets a bit darker. The year leading up to this, 2025, it was a nightmare.
A nightmare for the shelters.
For the shelter workers who lived through it, absolutely. 2025 is described as a year of extreme tension. The existing shelters just reached a point of rupture.
I was looking at the admission numbers, and they are startling. In just the first half of 2025, admissions jumped by 26% compared to the year before. That's a huge spike in 6 months. What happened?
It wasn't about people getting bored with their pandemic puppies. If you dig into the causes, that spike tracks almost perfectly with the housing crisis.
The rent prices, the lack of apartments.
Exactly. But it's more specific than that. It's the no pet clauses in leases. There was an explosion of them. So imagine a family. They've lived in an affordable place for years with their dog. Suddenly, the building gets sold or they get renovated. They have to move. But the only apartments they can find or afford have these strict no animals rules.
So they have to choose between a roof over their heads or their family pet.
That's the choice. And when push comes to shove, people have to choose housing, so they surrender their animal. Not because they want to, but because they have to. That 26% jump is mostly heartbroken families who just ran out of options.
That's devastating. And it frames this new facility in a completely different light.
It does.
It's not just catching stray dogs. It's managing the fallout from a housing market that's hostile to pet owners.
Correct. The new facility on Pie-IX was designed to handle thousands of animals in annual rotation because that's the new reality. The explicit goal is to drive down euthanasia rates. When shelters get overcrowded, that's often the only tool they have left. This provides the space to avoid that.
And this connects to what I think is the most revolutionary part of this whole thing, the philosophy. They aren't calling it a pound, they call it a social resource center.
This is the aha moment of the entire project. The city and Proanima realized you can't separate the animal from the human. They're treating animal welfare as a service public de proximité.
Let's unpack that term. It translates to local public service, but that sounds a little dry. What does it mean in practice?
It means a service that is embedded in the community and responds to human needs, not just bureaucratic ones. It's reframing the government's role. Usually, animal control is about public safety, right? Keeping strays off the street. Montreal is saying, no, this is about family stability. If you save the pet, you might keep a human life on track.
The program that really drove this home for me was the support for domestic violence victims. I didn't immediately make that connection, but once you hear it, it makes perfect sense.
It's a massive issue. Social workers have known for years that one of the biggest barriers for victims leaving a dangerous home is fear for their pets.
Because the abuser uses the pet as leverage.
They do. They threaten to hurt or kill the animal if the victim leaves. So the victim stays trapped. They can't bring the dog to a women's shelter, and they can't leave it behind.
That's horrible.
This new center breaks that trap. They provide temporary emergency sheltering for these pets. It allows the victim to get to safety, knowing their animal is also safe.
You're effectively removing a hostage from the situation.
That's a powerful way to put it, but yes. And they apply that same logic to homelessness and hospitalization. Say you're an elderly person, you fall, you break your hip, you need to be in the hospital for 2 weeks.
What happens to your cat?
Exactly. In the old system, you might even refuse to go to the hospital. Now the center offers temporary housing. It preserves that bond during a crisis instead of severing it.
And then there's the housing mediation. How do they intervene there? Are they acting like lawyers?
Not lawyers, but mediators. Instead of waiting for a family to surrender their dog because of an eviction notice, the center tries to get involved earlier.
Proactively.
Yes. They act as advisors, they can talk to landlords, explain the laws, maybe negotiate a behavioral contract for the pet. They're trying to stop the surrender before it even happens.
It's proactive social work. It's treating the pet as a member of the household unit.
That's it. It's a structural response to a social crisis. They're not just managing animals, they're managing the fallout of poverty and housing instability.
So Proanima is the new giant on the block. But I want to be clear, they haven't replaced everyone. I mean, if you've lived in Montreal, you know the SPCA.
Not at all. It's a hybrid collaboration. The Montreal SPCA on Jeantel and West is still a massive pillar of the whole ecosystem.
But their role has changed.
It's become more specialized. Under this new model, the SPCA is focusing heavily on what they're best at: cruelty investigations and emergency vet care. They're kind of like the specialist trauma center and the police force for animal cruelty.
Well, Proanima handles the day-to-day volume.
Precisely.
There was also this interesting detail about funding, the acronym CSRM: capture, sterilize, return, maintain.
Right, this is for the stray cat population specifically. And the funding model is pretty clever. The money you pay for your animal license.
The tag for your dog or cat.
Yeah, that revenue is now strictly managed and reinvested directly into these CSRM programs.
Okay, explain the return part. Why catch a stray cat, fix it, and then put it back on the street? Doesn't that defeat the purpose?
It seems counterintuitive, but it's based on biology. If you just catch a cat and remove it, you create a vacuum in that territory.
Yeah.
And a new unsterilized cat will just move in, have kittens, and you're back to square one. It's called the vacuum effect. But if you sterilize the original cat and put it back, it holds that territory, it keeps other cats out, but it can't reproduce.
So over time, the population just naturally declines.
It stabilizes and then declines. You're using nature's own rules to control long-term costs.
That is fascinating. So the license fee I pay for my golden retriever is effectively funding a biological force field against stray cat overpopulation.
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Okay, we've covered the philosophy, the building, the biology. Let's pivot to the practical side. Let's do a little service journalism. I'm putting you in the hot seat.
Let's do it.
All right, scene one. I live in Montreal. I have a dog. Money's tight, but it's not a crisis. Where do I go?
Okay, first stop is the new hub we've been talking about, Proanima on Pie-IX. They have a community clinic opening up through 2026. They offer microchipping for $50, which is a steal, and pet food assistance if you're struggling to buy kibble.
Is it open to anyone?
No, and that's the catch. It's a municipal service. You'll need proof of residence in one of the 19 boroughs. You have to prove you're part of the tax base that built it.
Makes sense.
Uh.
Okay, scene two. I found a stray cat, or I need to get my own cat fixed, and I can't afford a private vet.
Then you're looking for the Mittens Clinic at the SPCA on Jeantel and West. Their specialty is low-cost sterilization. They are the go-to for population control on a budget.
Got it. Scene three, this one's important. I'm a young person living on the street, and my dog is my lifeline. But he's sick.
This is a vital resource. You want the Street Youth Clinic. It's a collaboration with the organization Dans la Rue at the corner of Ontario and Papineau.
And this is staffed by students.
Yeah, vet students from the University of Montreal. It's a beautiful system. The students get real-world experience, and the homeless youth get free, judgment-free care for their companions. It meets people where they are.
Okay, final scenario. I'm not homeless, not a youth, but I'm broke. My dog needs surgery. The bill is $2,000. I just don't have it. Is there a safety net?
There are safety nets, but they come with bureaucracy. You have foundations like the Foundation Animaux pour la Vie. They can cover up to 50% of vital care costs. There's also the Artemis Pet Project for emergency aid.
But I can't just call him up and ask for cash, can I?
No, and this is a really important warning. You need your paperwork. The request usually has to come from your veterinarian to vouch for the need, and for almost all these services, you need proof of income.
We're talking tax returns, notice of assessment, that kind of thing.
Yes, or your social assistance booklet. It's a hurdle, and it can be frustrating when you're stressed, but it ensures the limited funds go to the people who really qualify. So, bring a folder with your documents.
That is really good advice. The era of the handshake deal is over. This is a formalized social service now.
Ideally, yeah. And with that comes professional levels of paperwork.
So let's zoom out as we wrap up. We started with a building, but we've ended up talking about housing, domestic violence, the economy. We've moved from a city with 19 different contracts to this centralized $150 million infrastructure.
We have, and I think the synthesis here is that Montreal has recognized that in a modern city, you just can't separate the animal from the human condition. By building this facility and integrating social services, they're admitting that animal control is, well, it's a branch of social work.
It's a fascinating evolution. Makes you look at city government differently.
It does, and it leaves us with a provocative thought, you know? If a city starts treating pet ownership as a factor in housing rights and domestic violence support, what other administrative city services are actually disguised social work just waiting to be reinvented?
Right. Is the library just a place for books? Or is it a community mental health center? Is public transit just about buses? Or is it the primary driver of economic mobility for the working poor?
Exactly. Once you pull that thread on animal welfare, you realize almost every service a city provides is really about holding the social fabric together. Montreal just decided to spend $150 million to make that fabric a little stronger for its four-legged residents and the two-legged ones who need them.
Well, that is all the time we have for this deep dive, whether you have a dog, a cat, or just an interest in how cities work. I hope you see Boulevard Pie-IX a little differently now. Thanks for listening.
Until next time.